TED Talk was that we can't overcome obstacles if we don't talk about them. And that's what we're here to do today. Each one of my panelists, I am sure, have experienced an obstacle in their journey to where they are today. They have experienced a moment when they were told that they did not belong, or when they have felt as though they did not belong. And where I'd like to begin is with each of the panelists sharing that moment or one of those moments with you and letting you know how they were able to overcome that, who helped them to overcome that, and how they moved forward. And I'm going to tell my panelists, please, I know it's going to be difficult, but if you could limit it to 5 minutes, I hear you, Dr. Rose. I'm going to keep an eye on my clock, because the purpose of today is to listen to the conversation, engage in a conversation with the students that came to hear us. And we want to make sure that we allow enough time for that to happen. So I'm going to start down here. I'm already down here. I'm already down here. And 5 minutes, please, if you can think of.
Way less than.
Okay, of one moment when you felt as though you didn't belong, or when you were told that you didn't belong.
You know, it's funny. I think my background is music and the arts, and so I've been told a lot that I don't belong just from that alone. Like, what are you doing in academia, and what the heck are you doing as an administrator? But I use those things to catapult me, you know, to the next level of whatever I'd like to be. I talk to my faculty and staff a lot about the why, because it's important that we know why, and she mentioned it a little bit there. But the reason that I do it is because I know that someone's always watching. At least I feel that way. A lot of people feel like they're not mentors or heroes or anything like that, but I actually feel the opposite is true. I think someone's always going to be a hero to someone that's watching that you don't even know is staring at you, wondering what you're going to do next, so that they can be encouraged to go to the next level. So my why generates all the possibilities of what I want to be in the future, and it's never been something that I've seen as a barrier. It's hard being an African American woman, just period, because a lot of things are presumed about you that may or may not be true. But that's not my focus. My focus really is the why of why I'm doing it, and I just keep that going. And I'll defer to my good friend Dr. Campbell to talk about his. See, I was way less than 5 minutes.
I'm going to be short too. I think what I remember most is the microaggressions, and that was when I was in a PhD program. So maybe there's a little more discretion that's practiced among non-black people, where they'll say things like, you're not like the rest of them, and it sounds well intended, but you can read between the lines. And then funding that seemed to be for certain groups and not quite for me. Things like that. I was always given overt confidence, overt support, but you kind of know when people are going on special trips and things like that. There's this inclusion, exclusion type of thing, and it is a bit discouraging that you are excluded from such a tight group. When you get into PhD programs, you'll see they're very tight, and either you're in or you're not in. But this is a sense of motivation, or you get a sense of motivation to unite with other people from other programs who might be experiencing the same thing. So I have friends to this day that did not have the same degree that I had, but we united and supported each other. So that's about it for me.
Good afternoon, everybody. An instance where I felt or was told I don't belong. I share this with my students. When I was in 4th grade, I grew up in an area called Grand Terrace, California. If you can tell by the name, there's not a lot of us that live there, okay? I was one of 5 black families in the whole city. So I grew up with a high level of, I was in 4th grade, and her name was Miss Post. Yes, her name's Miss Post. And I was in 4th grade, and my parents were both first-generation college graduates, and they came from pretty much nothing. And so I had her as my teacher, and I kept getting C minuses and D pluses in math. And my parents didn't play when it came to school. I was to get A's and B's, and I told Miss Post, I'm getting C minuses and D's. I can't do this. I got to do better. What can I do to do better? And Dr. Campbell speaks of microaggressions. Well, here's a great example. Her response to me was, C's are good for you, Kalonji. Yeah, she literally said that to me. She said, C's are good for you. And it still resonates with me. I remember how I felt when she said that. And so I went home and I told my mother, Mrs. Rose Rhoda Saterfield, what the teacher said. And she said, okay, baby, I'm gonna go talk to Miss Post. I so wish I could have been there for that conversation. I'd have been, right? Well, from Miss Post's point of view, she thought she was giving me a compliment. Did my mother take it that way? Absolutely not, because how dare you tell my son that he's nothing more than an A student? And so when I saw Miss Post that next Monday, for some reason, she acted so much differently to me. And so I remember that story, and I still remember that story because of what she said to me and how it felt. And it's interesting they mentioned the why. And what she said, Ms. Abrams said, like, revenge isn't a good why, and I love that because I could have used that for motivation and say, I'm gonna show her. But that's basing my happiness on how somebody else sees me. I don't care how she sees me. My why then became my mother and father killed themselves to provide this life for me. It is my honor to make sure that I live up to what they created and then pass that on to their grandchildren and their after that. So that is my why, and that's literally about how that story brought that about. Sure.
Oh,
No one
In title.
I'm Dr. Kellori, Dower, Dean of Fine and Performing Arts.
A.C. Campbell, Professor of Sociology.
Kalonji Saterfield, Professor of Communication Studies.
Hello, I'm Dr. Vaniethia Hubbard. I'm the Vice President of Student Services. And I'd like to start by saying that I think the obstacles for me started at birth. And I say that honestly because I was born to a single mom, single parent household. And I grew up in the rough neighborhoods of Compton and South Central LA. And so a lot of times people looked at me as though you're supposed to stay in this community and this box that we have created and built for you. And when I left high school and went to UC Berkeley, it was this fear, this feeling of I don't belong. I placed that on my own. I felt like this was outside of my community, outside of this area that I was most familiar with. And I got on academic probation as a result of my own fears, of me not wanting to go seek out professors and get assistance and support, of me running from classrooms that were lecture labs of 300 students could sit in a lecture lab. I felt like I was in an environment where folks said I didn't belong, and I was giving them proof and evidence of that by my own actions. And I had to go back to what my mom and my grandmother said to me when I was a little girl. I think I was 6 years old when my mom first said to me, I need you to get all the education that you can get because it's the one thing that no one can ever take away from you. And as I started to remember my childhood and what my mother and my grandparents sacrificed on behalf of me being able to have an education, I thought, I need to get it together really quickly. And it's the same as Kalonji said, it wasn't about revenge. It was more so about me, proving to me that I did belong, that I did belong at UC Berkeley. And I decided once I got off academic probation, okay, I did it. Now I'm ready to move on to a community that I know feels like home. And that's why I transferred to Cal State Fullerton and continued with my education beyond that. But I felt like there were always these moments in my journey to where I am today where folks were trying to tell me, you don't belong. And me always trying to prove to them, yes, I do.
Hi everyone, my name is Cammie. I'm the Sports Information Coordinator. My moment was I transferred from Santa Ana College to a small school in Idaho named Lewis Clark State. And in that situation, I was definitely a minority. The only African American people on campus were primarily the basketball and baseball team. And there were difficult times where you'd go to the grocery store and you'd have some confrontations with people and just situations where you can get yourself in a lot of trouble. And I remember one instance where someone said something to me and I didn't like it, and I had two decisions I could make. I could make the decision to confront this person, or I could make the decision to think about why I was there in the first place. And I chose that one just because, you think back about it of why I made the decision to go to school, why I made the decision to do everything that I did to get to that point. And for me, that was more important than that situation that I was in at the moment. So when I was going through the process and figuring out what I was going to do next, I just thought about, my 7-year-old niece, where I was the example for her. So I'm going to get my degree. Now I have 3 degrees, and she can look at me as an example going forward, where I didn't have anybody in front of me who has degrees. So that was really my why, and really why I'm here today.
Good afternoon. I'm Linda Rose, and I'm the president of Santa Ana College. And I had a very non-traditional beginning to higher education. So my I don't belongs actually had to do with ageism and sexism because I was female, and in terms of racism because I was African American. So when I went back to college at 34, you get into a classroom with a lot of younger people. And my hair's been gray since I was in my 20s. So people made assumptions. But once I recognized that higher education was my ticket to help my children, I have 2 sons who are electrical engineers. Once I realized that my education and working to do whatever I possibly could to do my best as a student, because I barely graduated from high school in Compton, Centennial High, as an adult, despite what people told me. And when I decided I was going to get a master's degree in English, oh my God, it got even worse. What? African Americans don't major in English. You want to major in English? Well, don't you guys speak that black stuff? Oh, you mean Ebonics? That's actually a researched language on the planet? Yeah, if you don't know that it's a language, it actually is. So even if I say ain't, it's a part of a formal language structure. So anyway, once I decided that I wanted to learn and teach English, that's all I needed to do. I mean, one of the things I learned more than anything was my own self-motivation, my own recognition of what I felt my abilities were, regardless of what anybody else thought of me. Because until I die, there's a lot of people on the planet who don't like me. Do I care? No. If we spend our lives caring about what other people think of who we are, what we do, how we do it, and why, we actually don't achieve our goals. And when I teach, I taught for 17 years, I taught English. One of the things I used to teach my students is that, okay, you need to learn how to communicate with others clearly. The language that's used in America and all over the world for business is actually English. If you learn that language well, you do very well. So when my students would come to class and they would see me, many of my students, even when I started in 1994, would go, God, you're the first African-American teacher I've ever had. And you teach English too. Whatever. But that kept me going. that kept me getting up every day, going to class, doing my teaching. It keeps me studying now. It kept me going when I became a dean. It kept me going when I became a vice president. It kept me going when I became a president. It kept me going when I decided to go back to school to UCLA to get a doctorate as an adult, right? So the idea that I don't belong, it's there, but it's like there, and I have to have these conversations with myself, and I hope those of you out there have some self-reflections and write in your journals, because you know our egos will kill us. You know, that we kind of talk about, wait a minute, who said I don't belong? Who the hell cares? I don't care what you think. What do I think of what I can do and how I can do it and why? And that just keeps me motivated to this very day. So even when I'm walking outside and I run up on students and I ask them this question, I don't say, what's your major? What problems are you going to solve when you graduate? And they go, what? Nobody ever asked me that, so I'm asking, what problems are you going to solve when you graduate? You are spending all this time on yourself, acquiring this knowledge. What problems will you solve? That is a fabulous thing to muse on, right? So I keep thinking that to this very day. I mean, learning is why, for me, I exist. I love learning, so I am in the perfect job. I might drive my staff crazy because I ask a lot of questions. But I like learning. I'm a learner. I'm an achiever, and I want other people to be joyful about that as well. So that would be my belong story.
So I realized I failed to introduce myself also when we started all of this out, and I am Professor Jenkins. I teach chemistry here on the campus. I've been here for about 20 years. I just want to add one thing about when I have felt that I did not belong. And I have to say that throughout my entire education, I have felt that I did not belong, because when I sat in the classroom, you have to realize that I'm a STEM major, right? Mm-hmm. I sat in the classroom and no one looked like me. You have to realize when I got my degrees back in the 1980s and 1990s, I sat in the classroom with students that never looked like me. And when I say like me, students of color, period. And I was taught by all white men. And I swore that I would become a chemistry instructor just so my students could experience being taught by someone who had experienced what they experienced and someone who looked like them. It makes such a huge difference, and you just never know. So what I want to do now is open the floor to the students in the audience, and I would like for you to share with us any moments since you've been in your educational path and here at Santa Ana College where you have felt that you did not belong, or where you have been told that you did not belong. We need to talk about these things so that you can overcome them. And address anyone on the panel. If you would like to pose that thought to them, or if you would just like to share your experience or your thought, just raise your hand and you're going to see Professor Jenkins running around the room. I move really slow. Just be patient, okay? All right, so who wants to go first? Oh, come on, you guys, it's a conversation. How many times do you get to talk to the presidents of these?
Good afternoon, everybody. Sorry, I'm a little nervous.
Introduce yourself, please.
My name is Heidi Jaimes, majoring in nursing. I recently came back to school after serving 6 years in the military. So back in 2012, I didn't think I belonged in school. I didn't have money. People told me that I would never go to college and I would never get a degree. So now I'm here and I'm working towards it, and I'm proud of myself for that.
Thank you for sharing. Anyone else?
Right down front.
Oh, thank you. Okay, I'm coming. Going down is slower than going up.
That's right. That's right.
Y'all don't want to see me fall.
Hi, y'all. My name is Diana, and I will say that I experienced more so. I'm a mom. My son is 10, and he recently started going to private school. And I experienced it. I mean, I experienced it with myself, but I guess I'm so good at just not letting it get to me. But I do let it get, like, it gets to me when it comes to my son. And I experienced a lot of like microaggressions, and even till I'm surprised. I'm surprised where I get like very upset about it, because around my surroundings, I'm in Santana. I have my people here. I feel like I belong here. But he goes to school in Tustin, in a private school in Tustin, and he loves it. I mean, he loves it. Even the thought of him going back to public school, he was like, no, I don't want to go. So the microaggressions I experienced there as a mom, and having a really brilliant boy. For example, just 2 weeks ago, I showed up to the school, and the lady was like, "Oh, hi, can I help you?" And I'm like, and all the parents are picking up their kids. So I'm just like, is there something going on? Is there an event going on that she's trying to? I'm like, well, I'm just picking up my son. He's like, well, what's his name? I'm like, Julian. Oh, Julian. He is so smart and brilliant. And to me, it was like, why is he such an amazement that a little brown boy is like smart? So dealing with those things, like even like for my son, like maybe he doesn't see them, maybe he doesn't see the microaggressions, but me coming out as a parent, I get upset, I get hurt that, gladly that he doesn't see it, but what if the day that he starts seeing it? Because right now he's a kid, he's naive, and kids are kids, and he just loves everyone, but my concern and my thing is always like the microaggressions that he's an experience, or that he has, because people are always like, oh, he's so smart. I'm like, well, what's so surprising? Like, why? So yeah, that's my experience with not belonging. More so with not belonging with like those moms or the moms out there, like, because I don't participate so much in the events over there because I stay here. I like participating in my community here. But yeah, it's a struggle for me of just like staying quiet, especially when it comes to my son. I hope he doesn't experience it, but I feel like it's our jobs to tell him. Like, I have to keep telling him, like, of these microaggressions that he does. I experienced it just walking up to the school. I can only imagine what other peers around him are saying. So that's it. I just want
Just
that.
as you were speaking, I was thinking about my own experience with my two sons, and they're 10 years apart. And I can remember when my youngest son was in the 4th grade, and his instructor labeled him as this troublemaker. But, I'm thinking my kid's sweet, but he was a totally different child. Anyway, but I remember prior to me going back to school, I didn't have the courage to go up to a teacher and say about my children, hello, no, you can't do that. But Lord, when I went back to school and I got my AA degree, those teachers, Lord. So I had my AA degree by then, and I remember going into the classroom and asking her to explain to me what she meant by what she had wrote on the report card, that he was a troublemaker. She wrote that on the card. That becomes a permanent record. So, and I said, I'm sorry, you are not going to designate my child as a troublemaker, but you need to help me understand what that means. Oh, you're intimidating me. I said, okay, I'll go bring a security guard in here myself. and he can watch us, but you are going to tell me what you mean by troublemaker. She couldn't. And I went to the principal, they took it off his record. He was just a talker. So he was like, this is really boring. He was reading by the time he was in 1st grade. So he was bored. But the teachers wanted to label the brown kids and the African American males as troublemakers. But I had to learn to stand up. And all throughout both my children's experiences in school, I remember when both of them decided to go into engineering, they were told, well, why not just study business? What do you want to do that math stuff for? I don't think you're going to do well. And we're talking local colleges here. And I had to say to them, no one gets to determine your path except you, not even me. What path do you want? how can I help you? But I don't care whose office you go into. I don't care what they try to tell you to do. I can't shield them. I knew I could never shield my children from the world and the craziness. But I can prepare them for the challenges. And so I would talk to them, you belong there just like everybody else. You know, and they would come and tell me, wow, there's so many cheaters, oh my God. Because they would see it.
Yeah.
They're like, I'm not cheating, I'm gonna do this on my own. And they did. I'm proud of them for that. But I had to constantly, it would wear me out, constantly. And I'm sure there's mothers in this room who are like, okay, when are these children leaving? Because this is wearing me out. But it's like you have to keep doing that. But it's in your best interest as well as theirs that they learn, yes, they belong, and they learn the skills that you provide by example, because you keep moving, right? So they see that. And it just, when you were speaking, it just kind of spoke to me about both of them wanting to do something and consistently being told, you are not good enough for that. I'm like, I'm your mother. You are. Keep going, keep going, keep going. You know, but not all children have the luxury of having a parent in the home who can say that to them. So any of you who have access to young men, brown, black, and perhaps their parents aren't telling them, if you use your words to move these children forward, that means something. Doesn't necessarily have to be a parent. It needs to be another adult in their life who sees their humanity and who sees their brilliance. That's important.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else wanting to share? Would you pass that down?
Oh, so next to you, I'm sorry. On this side, yes, you.
Oh, Vaniethia Hubbard.
Thank you for what you said, because I've been trying to put it in words since my first semester here, but I have a lot of self-doubt. I always feel like I'm not good enough. Everything. I'm like getting bullshit up. It's okay. Yeah, but I struggle with myself. It's never anybody around me, because I don't care what they think. That's me. But I care about what I think, and I have a lot of self-doubt when it comes to every aspect of my life with myself, and it's hard. It's hard every day just to keep myself self-motivated, and I plan on just pushing myself every day to do better. And thank you, because what you said just like touched me, because now I know that I'm not the only one that feels that way.
Absolutely.
So thank you.
Can I just comment in regards to that? That took bravery to share your story as well. So I really want to thank you. Thank you for that. I think sometimes the environments that we're in can start to seep into our psyche and tell us, you know, you don't belong here, or why are you here? You're not ready for this. Or you start to take on this baggage from your past and feel like it will dictate your presence and your future, but it doesn't. And I think you know you better than anyone, right? And so when I had to get outside of this space and this environment of where I felt like folks were looking at me a certain way, that might have just been my beauty. Yeah. Right? They might see the light, you know, that bright light, that my future is big and bright. You know, there might be other reasons, but you know your future. I think your future is bright as well.
Hi guys, so my name is Paula Romero, and so this event happened to me my senior year of high school. So I had to go to a different school to take this big test, and it was a private school, and so it was just a room full of, you know, rich white students with a male teacher, and I was the only one with color in there, so, you know, it's not because I was just nervous, but it's like I don't really, you know, let that get to me, because I know like, I can't find the word, I'm so nervous, I'm sorry.
Okay. You're great.
Because to me, it's not like they're superior, you know? It's like I know my own worth and stuff, so that wasn't really the problem. The problem was that once the test started, I was right in the front seat, and the teacher just said, okay, begin with the test. And within like 5 minutes in, he sees that I'm nervous. You know, it's not just because it's like an important test, but everybody else is nervous in that room too, you know? So, but specifically, he comes towards me and he's like, hey, like, I know you seem nervous, so I just want to talk to you and say, if you need a break, you could go outside, or, you know, or anything. But he's like, if you need anything, he said, good luck. And to him, it could have been, you know, like a nice gesture, but to me, it was kind of like, why me? Because I'm, you know, the one with color in the room. I'm like, I don't need your good luck. I'm smart. I know I could do this, you know? So it just kind of stood out to me how he only came towards me. Because, you know, I have color in the room, and nobody else does. So to me, it was kind of like, oh, he's kind of calling me, you know, not educated. So, yeah.
Thank you. Oh, right here.
How y'all doing? My name is Chris. I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. I went to historically black college back home, Tennessee State University. Let me tell you how excited I am that y'all and the staff up here, like, President, that's what's up. That's a place where black people prosper. You know what I'm saying? Historically black college, I've only known black teachers. I've only known black education, for sure. So coming here, moving to Santa Ana, never seeing African Americans, being psyching myself out, telling myself, well, you know, I probably don't belong here. Coming up to this campus, seeing a Q dog, so coming back to school was a leap of faith, period. But I was excited. I'm 10 times more, 1,000 times more excited that I think the first day I came up to the register, which I had to like continuously tell myself, no, just go do it. Just go see what happens. Even if they don't let you back in, even if they don't let you do school, just go try it. Take one step, and then the next one gets you the way you're going. Met him the first day. What's your name again, sir?
Cammie.
And he gonna tell me he the athletic director. So I'm like, hold on. Let brothers prosper out here. All jokes aside, I promise you I'm not joking. I mean, I genuinely being here, seeing white faces, black faces, brown faces in an environment like this is amazing. You feel me? So my I guess it didn't belong on me with me coming up here and not seeing or seeing us span and thinking, man, maybe it ain't for me. Maybe I need to go back to moving furniture or, you know what I'm saying, get a temp job, something like that. Today, I'm telling y'all, whole game changed.
You next, Kanisha.
Hi guys, my name's Wendy. So I think my moment was honestly all the time, I would say with my family, not my immediate family, but tias, tios are like, why are you in college? Why are you wasting your time? It's always like that. And it's like, I don't think they really see what you go through and how much you learn in college and how much it shifts your mind. So I think what keeps me going though are my kids, because I want to break that pattern in my family of not going to college and just living day by day, paycheck to paycheck. I want to at least give my kids the opportunity to think about college, even if it's not the way for them. I want them to see, like, mom did it. She went to college. We can do it too. So I think those are my moments, just my family telling me, like, oh, you're wasting your time. But I mean, ignorance can only get you so far. So.
Okay, I'm going to say something really radical. Really radical. I had to divorce my family.
Yeah.
I just divorced them. You know, you can divorce people in love. Still love them. It was in love that I divorced them until I finished school. Because otherwise it was like, what are you doing? What? You're so old. What did you go back to school for, girl? You got these old kids and you know your brain ain't working right. So what you want? You got a job? What you need a degree for? I said, where are the papers? I need to divorce all of that. Okay? So I divorced them, including my mother. I told them I love you all, but you will not see me at any more family gatherings for the next 6 years. And they did not.
Don't know what's going on.
Hello, my name is Fanny. I think I had like a lot of those moments. The first one that came here from my family. After me, like pretty much everyone came here because of me. They didn't want to leave me here alone. So now it's kind of really hard because I got married very young, and I guess the whole fact that you are young, you're kind of ignorant, and my husband at the time, I did divorce him. And he was Latino too, but he was not educated. I finished my college in Mexico, so we had a lot of differences, like when it came to education and stuff like that. For years, he kind of like, every time I would say, oh, I kind of want to go to school, he was always like, no, you can't because you don't have any, like immigration status, like you'll never get there. So he kind of always kind of pushed me, kind of scared me, until, I don't know, like I started like working and I got into a whole different environment, and then I realized, okay, I can do it. And so eventually I did that divorce. I met my husband, and my husband, he's still in school too, and he's been the one pushing me to get all my education and everything. But it is really hard, especially when like you're kind of like your immediate family is the one kind of like scaring you.
Yeah.
But thank God I did it.
Yeah.
So.
I really hate to stop the conversation, but I know that it will and should continue outside of this room. You all realize that many of us have made it where we are today, not because we did it on our own, but because there were so many people around us, behind us, pushing us, encouraging us. And so you all need to form those communities too and help each other be successful. I'd like to close with one parting remark from each of our panelists. If you had to give this audience one word of encouragement as they leave this room today, what would it be? Dr. Rose.
It
wasn't just me. Dr. Rose.
Know thyself.
Know thyself. Oh, one word?
I could do one. Okay, but you know what I mean. A thought.
One thought.
Oh,
The word that comes to mind is resilience.
Let's see. I'm a comm studies professor, right? So manage your self-talk. Manage your self-talk. All those negative things that you're saying yourself.
One word.
perseverance.
Mine is more of a phrase. It's keep moving forward. I think when that movie came out, it was one of the things that I took from it, and I've used it. And if I could do a shameless plug right now, we have one more event for Black History coming up on the 27th. There's food. I'm not talking about little stuff. I'm talking about fried chicken, soul food. So
say free.
Come, and it's free. Free to everybody. Okay. So come to that event. I was asked, I think, earlier by someone from the Eldon when they were doing the story, why do a Black History Month celebration on a campus that's predominantly not African American? And my comment to them was, it's the American history. It's the story, the true story of resilience. When you see African Americans, we're actually descendants of the people who made it. A lot of people died on those ships, and our ancestors didn't. They somehow pulled it off. So we kind of owe it to that. And we owe to share that story so that you know too. If you listen around the room, a lot of us have more in common than we thought. That's our story, and it's our collective story in the United States. So come to the event on the 27th, free food and entertainment, lots of it. All right.
So my parting thought is community. All my life I heard, especially when my children were born, it takes a village. It takes a village, and a village consists of all of us. So one round of applause for our panelists in the It couldn't have happened if you didn't come to attend today, so thank you all very much.
Real quick, if your teacher's giving out extra credit, I think it's out in the hallway, you can get your extra credit. Yeah, did you want to make that announcement?
Yes, if you, your teacher said you can get extra credit, we will have green extra credit slips with my signature on them that you can take to your faculty member. If they said yes, you can get extra credit. Not everybody subscribes to it, so don't get me in trouble.
And panelists, they would like a photo of the six of you, so please stay up front. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you.